Like to start at the beginning and go back to their origins and what inspires them, what motivates them. And I would like to know how you started your own magical journey and what inspired you to make tarot the center of your life and your career, basically.
Well, it really found me. I had a pretty chaotic. We'll just leave it at chaotic. Not a great childhood, and spent a lot of time alone. And so I was wandering around bookstores. I've always been, kind of my safe place, favorite place to be. And I found the occult section and found tarot, and it just opened this door to a world that was mine and that I felt safe in and had some measure of control over, which I didn't have in the rest of my life. And then I never planned for it to be the center of my life or my career. It just grabbed me. And especially, I grew up in Minnesota, I lived in Seattle for a long time, and then when I moved to Los Angeles, it just got pulled to the top of my life rather quickly. And now here we are, which is pretty amazing.
I see. So most of us, and by us I mean people who are interested in the occult or occult practitioners, identify as that. We've had these instances in our lives, whether they were synchronicities or visionary experiences, or in some cases tarot readings that changed the course of our lives and made us feel like there's something more to this world and pulled us into that world, like you did. You said it just pulled you in. Can you share with us any specific experiences that are memorable from your life? Any maybe particular tarot readings that you had for yourself that played that role for you?
I think the one that sticks out as most memorable, that was a real turning point for me in my career, as a reader. I was reading for someone, and my experience when I do readings is I lay everything down and I read it like I would read a poem more than a book, right? Because there's the interpretation, but I don't feel like I'm getting messages or anything, right? And people argue with me about that, but I was doing a reading for someone, and she asked about her dad who had been ill, and I said, okay, we'll do a reading, we'll see what comes up, we'll see if it's helpful. And it came up in the reading, it hit me in the course of the cards, he's gonna go sooner than you think. And he's okay with it. It's a joyous thing, but it was I think it was the world card or something, the end of an era and stepping into the next. And she went sooner than she was going to, and he did pass sooner than he was going to, but it was a real turning point for me of just, to just let myself really step into that role fully and say what I was reading instead of trying to kind of edit for what I thought I should say, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Very profound, what you just said. Would you say you had, growing up, any occultural, I will call them heroes, any predecessors that did work with the tarot and with magic that influenced you and you followed in their footsteps?
I think for me, a lot of musicians who had a reputation, or Stevie Nicks and Big Blondie fan, and David Bowie and even Prince. I'm from Minnesota, and Prince, with the symbol, and so not anyone who was directly a tarot reader, but all of these influences of people who are look, you can create a life that's completely outside of what anybody says you can.
Yeah, I love that. Creating a life completely outside what everybody else expects, because obviously you're very successful, but you have a very unconventional choice of career, very unconventional path.
Yes.
So what would you say was the biggest challenge while treading that path for you?
The biggest sign?
The biggest challenge.
Oh, the biggest challenge.
What was the hardest
oh my
part
gosh.
of it?
I think that the hardest part has been overcoming those latent voices from my early childhood that, you know, kind of tell me like, come on, you can't do this. This is a life for someone else. This isn't a life for you. As you know, when you grow up in that kind of environment, it forms your brain. Like that's the environment your brain is forming, and so you have to learn to work with that. It's never going to go away, and so kind of uncovering that. And unfortunately, I married someone who's been very, very helpful in that. It's like, of course you can. What are you talking about? Just, you know, use your time to write, to create.
Beautiful. That's the most important thing, having people who support you, because obviously in society you're going to meet a lot of opposition when you do anything unconventional. What would you say were the biggest misconceptions that you have faced as a tarot reader and tarot creator?
That, I mean, the biggest misconception of me personally, you know, just when people like, it's always with love readings, you know.
Okay.
Where's my person? What do they look like? When are they coming? How do I meet them? And they're like, oh, that's not really what I do. And then I think I had a huge misconception about creating tarot, how to work with an illustrator, and Rohan really taught me how to work with an illustrator. I thought, oh, I'll just give you like this word salad of feelings, and you know, and you'll draw from there. And he's like, no, you need to give me much, much more. But that was amazing. Like I didn't realize what that collaborative process is like, and really how close you get to someone through it, especially working on something as intense and specific as a tarot deck.
I was gonna say it's like a marriage, it's just a synergy that you have between you. How did that occur? Because you're obviously a huge part of the deck. It's a very visual deck. People, when they see it here at Watkins, they always love the illustrations. They're drawn in by them. So how did you guys meet, and how did you decide to collaborate on this?
Well, I mean, we met through Cisco Publishing House. I loved the idea of doing a tarot deck. Always wanted to. Wanted never cross my desk until this point. And then I think we got on immediately. It seemed to work. It's not often I get to work with a client who's so involved with the project in a positive way. Quite often it's in a negative way. So it was just really lovely to kind of be given this blank canvas, but with so much kind of input in a way around the edges, and in a world which I didn't really know that much about, apart from obviously knowing the basics of a tarot deck. But I didn't know Melinda has so much knowledge, like such intricate knowledge. So that was just, you know, a wonderful way of getting involved with it.
For Melinda, that one of the biggest misconceptions was people coming to you and thinking that tarot is all about foretelling the future, that it is only a tool for divination. And obviously for you, it's not that. It is informed by your creative writing background, isn't it? And your love of storytelling, your understanding of the world of symbols and language. Could you tell us a bit more about that? Because this deck obviously is about, it's directly inspired by folk tales. And what makes it unique is its relationship with storytelling and how you tell your story through the cards. So how has your creative writing background influenced your magical practice in general and your practice as a tarot creator?
You know, it's actually the other way around. I have a degree in art. My undergraduate degree is in art history, so I did a lot of writing, but a lot of academic writing, and I never had. I knew I was good at writing, but I had never thought like that's going to be my life. And it was through with Elemental Power Tarot, the first tarot deck, I went, oh, this is like, I actually really like this process. Like, okay. And then I think that we had done Elemental and Your Magical Year, and that's when I just applied to grad school for writing. And I'd always thought about it, and I'd always wanted to write memoir and write stories, and going through this really opened that up. And I think that they were maybe influencing each other as well. I mean, as you said, like Tarot of Tales is very directly related to storytelling. Yeah. The book is written in these little narrative pieces that you can fit together. And I think that that influences my style of tarot reading as well, where I want to tell someone the story of what's happening in their life, so that they can choose the direction, right? So that it can become a choose your own adventure, and sort of open things up instead of shut them down. And part of that definitely is, you know, there's a little bit of the kind of seeing into the future, right? Because you're projecting what could happen down this road. But I really like the idea of giving people the tools to write the ending.
So you see it more as a tool to change your life, and it's more a tool for like creating destiny than following fate, right? Yeah, definitely. For, you know, I mean, like I was saying earlier, for creating the life that you want, that, you know, this, like, living is a creative process, and we make all of these choices every day. I mean, including, like, the, you know, the clothes that you wear, everything. It's all part of this story that you're making, in this life that you're making. And I think the tarot is such a huge, I mean, it's been a huge help for me. And I think that that's such a great use for it as well. Anything that makes people feel more, you know, it gives you more power and more agency. We have enough things in the world that seek to take that away. So. That is very true. There is a whole school of thought when it comes to tarot. There are many practitioners and historians of tarot who believe that it is like an arc for a specific story, that it is like a covert way of transmitting that story down the ages, aside from being like a tool for your own storytelling. Do you subscribe to that? And if it is a story arc, what kind of arc is that? What does it carry down?
I subscribe to it, yes and no, because it does, you know, comes out of Southern medieval Europe, out of this very Catholic society and culture. And so the archetypes that you see in the major arcana, those, you know, some of them are biblical, some of them are coming out of, you know, morality plays that were less Bible-based, but more about how to live your life, that would travel around, because most people didn't read. So there were these plays to teach you about your life. But of course, you know, the Catholic Church didn't make those up either. Those were pre-existing, all these archetypes, you know, death and the world and, you know, the hanged man, to seeing things in a different way. So I think that there's the Fool's Journey, definitely, that goes through the arc of the major arcana. But the fun thing is that you can mix that up, right? I think that if you're looking even at those 22 cards as sort of a closed arc of a story, if you start with the Fool and you end with the World, you can mix things up quite a bit, and it still makes a lot of sense.
Okay, yeah, I totally agree with that. My next question is like addressed to both of you. This is obviously influenced by folk tales. You both had to research those folk tales to tell the story and illustrate them. Which ones were most important for you guys personally throughout your life? Which ones inspired you the most?
I mean, for me, it's all of the Grimms.
Yeah, the Grimms are always a good source of folklore. I mean, I tend to feel like I personally rewrite life now just in that vein, and I tend to think of just everyday life with those old messages kind of coming through, rather than looking back to those and thinking these are the best ones to carry on. It's more about kind of, it's just treating people better, seeing how you can better your life, taking good messages from good things that happen, kind of taking good steps in good directions. Those kind of messages, which I don't know, Grimm's is full of those kind of, like, they're quite deeply embedded in there, but it's about seeing the right message.
Yeah.
And that's what's kind of great about what Melinda does with these decks, is kind of, she knows how to pull the right messages out of what comes in front of the person, and to read the person as well, and to understand this journey for them.
Right. Is there any story for either of you guys that it doesn't have to be a folk tale necessarily, but has been transformational for you, that you have seen it play out in your lives, like as an arc?
I am obsessed, coincidentally, because there's a bookstore, a whole Alice in Wonderland bookstore across the street, but like Through the Looking Glass was my first favorite book, and I think that has been much more of a guiding force in my life than I probably realize. Right, this idea, I mean, again, that you can just go through a portal and be in a different world. And Alice in Wonderland and Wizard of Oz as well, they're both these stories about these young girls who don't give up any of themselves when they're navigating these really difficult situations, and often really scary and really aggressive situations. They stay completely themselves, and I think that has been very inspiring for me.
Both of those figures that you mentioned, they're full archetypes, aren't they? So they start really green, they go into the rabbit hole or this other world, and they become transformed by facing challenges. And now that you talk about it, there are parallels to other archetypes in the major arcana in both of these stories, so that's fascinating. Rohan, you don't identify, from what I have understood about you, as an occultist, unlike Melinda. Is that correct?
This was my first kind of journey. I mean, it's been a few years now, but my first journey into it. I mean, I'm a big believer in people and the power of people. And what attracted me to working with Melinda was that she has a lot of time for people and a lot of energy for people. And how she chooses to put that to people is through the deck. And that's a beautiful language to do that through. So it's been a great, opportunity for me to use my knowledge of the narrative to help Melinda explain that narrative, to individual people through the cards. So that's my love of the occult.
That's your practice, yes, your art. That's a personal compliment from me to you. It's like I see in your style a lot of the golden age of illustration, and that's fantastic because today we don't see a lot of illustration like that. I think it has been dampened down, and your work really stands out in that way. It's very evocative of classic illustrators, and I think that's why people love it here. The quality of it is astounding. When it comes to your readers, and your audience in general, what is the main takeaway you would like them to have from using your cards?
I want it to open up their life. Right? That's the biggest thing for me is wherever you are in life, whatever is going on, whatever the circumstances are, what you have or you don't have, you have exactly what you need to take the next step to creating that life that you want. And if you don't know what that is, tarot is a great way to find that. Right? But I think that we can, and myself included, we can get really bogged down in like, oh, well, I would love to be doing this, but I need XYZ, so I can't. And it's just such a way to keep ourselves small, right? But there's always something that you can do, and I hope that with all of my work that opens that up for people.
What would you say makes this deck different from other decks that have gone in the past, from the classics, let's say, of the genre?
his amazing artwork. It was really important to me to do a deck with no people because I spent so much time in readings, and I'm sure if anybody reads in here, you spend a lot of time with, okay, so it's the emperor, but really anybody can, you know, be in that archetype. And so I wanted it to be as inclusive as possible in that way. So that's something that is very unique with this. So that my belief that none of the cards are bad, that they're all just something that you work through. I think that comes through in his illustrations quite beautifully, where there's not, you know, I don't, and maybe other people do, but I don't see a card that's you know, like really scary. You know, that they all seem like something that you can get through. You know, just like you read a fairy tale, like you can be sure that they're going to get through it. It's going to work out in the end.
That is very true, and also the same is true of the book that goes with the cards. There aren't any real reversals, there is no bad interpretation. And I remember at one point when I needed like an answer to something, I was going through something hard, and I picked up your deck at the moment, and it really comforted me that when I pulled out cards, there was nothing ominous there. There was nothing, like, even the negative, supposed negative shadow side was really positive and empowering, and that I think that was really different from other decks.
Oh, that's amazing. So thank you.
That is, it is very beautifully done. Well done.
Thank you.
What advice would you give somebody who is new to the tarot and they pick up the Tarot of Tales or any other work of yours as their first deck? What would you tell that person? How would you like them to go about the reading?
The biggest thing, I think, for brand new readers is to take the pressure off of memorizing everything. I mean, I've got a bunch of shortcuts in your tarot guide too, right? You know, there's a little shortcuts for memorization. But I think that the best way to do that is to pull a card every day, not asking any question, right? Not, what's my day going to be like? What do I need to know today? Because then you're moving into an interpretation, and you have this pressure of like, is my interpretation right or wrong? And to eliminate that, if you just pull a card and then say, okay, I'm going to pull a card and then I'm going to write for 20 minutes about this card, just as like a journaling prompt. Then you form a personal relationship with the cards. You know, you read what the card is about, what the definition is in the book. But it's really through those personal relationships with the cards that you gain fluency.
And that is another thing that I noticed. Like we get a lot of customers who come to me and they say, oh, I'm a beginner, could you suggest something to me that is easy? And how can I learn all of this? They seem to be confronted with all this pressure because the tarot is an old system and there is so much about it.
Yes.
And your books do a very good job at taking away this pressure.
Oh, thank you. Maybe this was my way. My first deck that I got was the Crowley deck and his book, so I really dove into...
that was my first deck as well,
okay. Yeah, it was the same. Diving into the deep end, which worked too, you know, so there's not... I mean, clearly that worked. There's not any right or wrong deck to get.
Of course. There is like a resurgence, you must have noticed in recent years, of an interest in like folklore on one hand and on the other in the occult, tarot, everything that goes with it. Why do you think that is? Would you say that it's just like a fad, or there is something deeper that is going on under
God, I hope not. I hope it's not just a fad. But I don't think that it is. I think that as technology advances, that it provides a mirror to ourselves as humans and as human animals. You know, when we start to see that differentiation, I think we've seen ourselves as really melded with technology for a long time, but with the, you know, when the technology starts to we're getting into AI and all this, as we really start to see the differences. And I think that people are looking for ways to get deeper into that and into that relationship. I mean, what do you think?
No, I think it's a great way to. It gives you the opportunity to kind of question your motives in everyday situations and your emotions and the way you look at day-to-day, experiences, rather than kind of just following this constant blah blah that's in your face and trying to pick yourself out of that. Instead, it kind of just sits you, like you say, with like a mirror, and then you get to kind of pick yourself through those different understandings. So it's a breath outside of all of that, I think.
Yeah,
Maybe
I was going to ask, because as an artist, all of us who identify as artists, writers, our field has been very adversely influenced by AI and the recent technological advancements. How have you felt personally this influence in your work, and can you see any collaboration in the future between an artist like you and AI in some way? Do you think there's going to be some sort of compromise there, or a clash?
I can't see any coming together yet. I mean, I do a lot of research when I'm working on a project, very simple, quick research, which relies on like the search engine on a computer. And over the last 6 months or so, the images I get now on a search, these kind of horrific melding of two English words that I've put into the search engine. It's kind of, it's quite frightening. The kind of, it's like being in touch with this kind of demonic mind that's just spitting garbage at you. So I mean, I don't know, I'm not sure how, in my practice, I have no interest in getting involved with it personally, because I need to keep myself not kind of pure, but just I need to always practice on my work, not anything else. But I'm sure there's always obviously already artists working with it, but it's a way of kind of keeping yourself very much at the centre of what you do, and using AI to help you progress your work rather than using it to produce your work in any way.
Yeah, like art as a form of resistance to all of that, what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, we're human, we're not machines, so we have to promote that fact.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think your work in particular is so, you can see the touch, right? Like you can see so clearly the human touch in it, and so maybe more than other artists, would not be a good a good fit for us.
Yeah, it's a breath of fresh air, because there are so many texts specifically that are now designed by AI, and you can see that in the artwork that it's been made by a machine or with a heavy involvement of AI, and it misses that touch, and yours does not. It has a signature in it. And it has like a warmth and humanity. So
it's mistakes. It's
exactly.
Problems.
So what do you guys see as the future? What are you planning for your next adventure, let's say?
I got an idea like 2 days ago, but I haven't told you about it yet.
Now?
Yeah, you want to know right now? A deck, like an oracle deck that is a companion to Tarot of Tales.
Okay.
Right? Okay. All the little symbols. And then a narratively written book. Yeah. I'm sure he and I both do everything the hard way. We'll find a way to make it very difficult. As we did. Tarot of Tales, it's so funny. The book is written in that it's going to be all these little narrative bits that you can string together into stories. And then at one point, a little ways in, I went, oh my God, that's 5 times 78, and they all have to be different, but they have to fit together in a specific way. And he made his harder too by making the drawings way bigger than they needed to be. So yeah, we'll find some way, but hopefully it will be beautiful.
In that case, thank you so much both for being with us tonight. It's been wonderful.
Thank you.
And we wish you all the best for your next products, and we would love to have you here again.
We'd love to come back. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.